Welcome to QX Church. I'm Pastor Scott Conway, and today I'm talking about a topic that isn't the sort of thing I usually talk about. I have talked about it over the arc of my career and sometimes in some depth. Particularly what I'm talking about today is money, specifically the love of money. I'm more known for talking about things pertinent to relationships and connecting with people. And today I'm talking about money. But money is actually pertinent to relationships. A lot of our relationships and our connections with other human beings are through money, through work, through business, through being a customer, through being someone who hires someone so that they work for us, either maybe something as simple as a babysitter or doing our lawn mowing. That money is one of the currencies of relationship. And when it comes to marriage challenges, very often, money is one of the top two topics that get discussed in my office a lot. Money does make a difference. We like to think that it doesn't, and that money really isn't important, but it is. They say things like, money can't buy happiness. Now, I will tell you that it's true that if you are a miserable human being, you will be a miserable human being with money if you are a miserable human being with just some money. And that if you have a lot of money, you'll just be a very rich, miserable human being. And in fact, one of the things I can tell you from decades of working with people from the financially destitute up to the incredibly wealthy is that in some ways, those who lack money have a different level of hope than those who have money. Because those who lack money can hang on to the illusion that if only I had enough money, I could buy my way out of this problem. While the very wealthy no longer have that illusion because they're sitting around with their millions of dollars and wondering, is this all there is? I sat down at one point in time with a multimillionaire, had pulled $4 million that year. And he was talking about how all of the men in his mastermind, and they had been all men, hit every single financial goal that they had. And every single one of them in the process of hitting every single financial goal that they had, lost their wives, lost their kids. And only after the very, very last one of them was going through his divorce did it occur to them that maybe prioritizing our families a little bit more along with our business rather than prioritizing our business instead of might have been a good idea. And that's when we were having the discussion about him saying, well, maybe it would have been a good idea for us as a mastermind to have you in as one of our coaches and one of our speakers beforehand. You might have helped set us straight on the thing of don't just give lip service to our family being so important. Maybe we should, live our lives like our families really are as important as we keep saying they are. So money does make a difference, but money won't buy you happiness. Money doesn't make the problems go away. Money brings different problems with it, and lack of money sure can buy a lot of misery. Anyone who has received a bill in the mail and they don't have the money to pay it, people who run out of money before they run out of month, sure know how much stress financial lack can bring. But just because you have enough money, when you have enough money to solve the money level of the misery, what comes after that is very, very human. Money is math. So you would think that you're not going to argue over money. It's math. There's certain dollars and cents, and they add up to a certain number, and there's certain expenses and bills, and those are going to add up to a certain other number, and it's all accounting. It's bookkeeping. It's math. Why would you fight over math? Well, a lot of couples and businesses, so business partners and people in business, have a lot of arguments over money because, in truth, money fights are really just proxies for priority fights. The real argument you're having is over values. The real argument you're having is over priorities. Money buys the option to pursue more of one's priorities, but unless you have so much financial abundance that you can literally do everything you might like to do, in some way, shape, or form, you have to prioritize your resources. And it's the same thing with time. Any limited resource where there's not an unlimited amount of it, you have to decide where it is going, because every time you decide where something is going, you are also deciding where it is not going. Every hour I spend with any given person, I am choosing to not spend that hour with anyone else. Any given hour I dedicate to any given task, I am willfully choosing to not be employing to any other task. It's the same thing with dollars. If I have $1, whatever I spend that dollar on, I'm choosing this over everything else that dollar could possibly do. And if I have a limited number of dollars, then I have to decide based upon my values, my priorities, where does that dollar go? Who am I going to give it to, and why am I going to give it to them? Why am I spending this dollar this way? And the priorities that determine the application of limited resources is what the real fight is about. It sounds like it's about money, but it's about priorities. It sounds like it's about time, but it's about priorities. Money buys the option to pursue more of one's priorities. It buys options. It buys the ability to choose more things. Now, a curious thing, which I personally thought was hilarious. When my wife and I would go off and we'd adventure, and we'd go to stores and shops, and that was part of what we enjoyed doing, is being around opulence, being around abundance. And a lot of times we would go like, oh, if we had the money, we could buy this. If we had the money, we could buy that. Well, a few years later, we did similar adventures, but now we had money. Like, I have $1,000 in cash in my pocket. We had paid off credit cards. We could buy anything we wanted. And suddenly we're looking at sometimes almost the exact same thing, sometimes exactly the exact same thing, that just a couple of years earlier, oh, if we had money, we would buy that. And then we're looking at it like, we do have money and we could buy that, but I'm not sure it's actually worth it. I mean, it'd be nice to have, but I don't know. Is it worth $200 to us? I mean, I'm sure it's worth $200, but is it worth $200 to us? And very often what was funny to me is we decided no. And we would turn around and take that $200 and we would spend it on a show. So instead of going home with this $200 jacket, we would go home having had an experience of a $200 date night. And this was 20 years ago. And so that was a pretty opulent date night back then. An equivalent would be, some of my $500 date nights now. And to us, we jointly decided that building this experience to forever have this memory was more worth the money than the thing we could have bought. So sometimes you find your priorities really do shift when you can actually spend the money. So when I go into some of these opulent stores and I don't have the money to buy the stuff, I mean, really the only difference between me and an incredibly rich person when we walk in the store is I already know walking in that I'm going to walk out with nothing. But the person who has the money to buy stuff, who also walks out with nothing, is no better off than I was, other than the fact that when that person's walking around the store, they know that if they wanted to, they could buy it. And I've been on both sides of that equation. And it's an interesting play to realize that while money makes a difference, it also kind of doesn't. Money solves the problems that lack of money causes. After you get past the problems the lack of money causes, more money doesn't buy happiness. More money doesn't buy joy. You might get this endorphin hit like, I got a new treasure. But that wears off pretty quickly. That instead of having to get money to be happy, you want to happily acquire money. But many people have negative beliefs about money. A lot of people are perpetually in financial lack, and very often they're perpetually in financial lack because of their negative beliefs about money. Even when financial opportunity abounds, when it's all around, when you have job opportunities, business opportunities, where you have ways that you could earn the money, you have deals you could do to get the money, you have things that you're not even using that someone else wants that you could sell to get the money. even when financial opportunity abounds, some people seem almost adverse to earning it. These are often driven by some negative beliefs about themselves and money. Among them is, well, I'm just not good with money. Okay, well, that may be true. Someone could come into my martial arts school and say, well, I'm just not good at martial arts. Well, that's why you're a white belt. And if you learn, then you'll get to be a yellow belt. If you keep on learning, you'll get to be a black belt. But just because you're not good at something when you start doesn't mean that you can't get good at something. But some people say, I'm just no good with money. And they don't pursue money. They don't take the job. They don't take the promotion. They don't go for that new elevated position that they're already doing half the work for the manager anyway, because of it, I'm just no good at that stuff, even if they're already doing it. I'm just not that interested in money. I hear that one sometimes too. Often cast as a virtue. And if it's an individual thing and you're not pursuing money because the pursuit of money is in conflict with a higher value, concretely in conflict with a higher value, and you are choosing that, okay, I have no problem with that. But what's curious is I'll have some people sometimes say, well, I'm not that interested in money, who also complain about not having money. One of the weirdest ones I hear sometimes is, well, I don't want to pay all those taxes. Okay, you don't even have the money, and you're worried about the taxes. So if you win the lottery and you win $1 million and say they're going to take half of the money in taxes, and depending on what state you live in, could be more. Does that mean you're going to turn down $500,000? I mean, that's kind of what the people are saying. I don't want to have to pay all those taxes. You walk away with $500,000. I'll take the $500,000 if you really don't want it. And I'll pay the government their half, and I'll walk away with my half, and then you can be happy not having to have to pay the taxes on your $1 million. So I find that one kind of strange. Now another one, and this one gets kind of judgy. When people say things like, well, I'm not willing to exploit people. And there are people who have this idea that the way you get rich is to exploit people. And that they don't want to exploit people. That they don't see it as a voluntary fair exchange of value. That if I'm going to hire someone to do something and I say, I will pay you $20 an hour to do the thing, and they say okay, and they do the thing and I pay them $20 an hour, some people think, well, that's exploitation because you made 40 and you only paid them 20 and you walked away with all that money on their labor. Well, true. We call that doing business. And then out of my side of the labor, I pay all of the expenses and all of the overhead and handle all of the marketing and all of the business admin and all the rest of the stuff that goes along with owning the business, as well as I'm the one taking all the risk. Because if I lose the business, I lose all of my collateral, and then there's a whole thing to that. But people who don't understand how business works and think that all rich people have cheated their way to being wealthy will actively not pursue wealth because they don't want to cheat their way to wealth. And so they don't realize how judgmental they're being of everybody who's taken the risk, taken the gamble to start a business. Like sometimes you'll see things like, well, let's make the CEOs have to live on the money of the lowest paid employee. Or we could flip it. Let's have the lowest paid employee try to make a living on the CEO's income for the first 2 to 5 years they own the business. Because very often that income is dramatically negative. And so there's this whole thing about money. It's not a business seminar, but if you go into business, one of the things you have to be prepared to do is a whole lot of work for not very much money. And sometimes you're risking what you already own, and you're risking a lot of your money and a lot of your capital to get things started. Even something as simple as a martial arts school. So I am turning over my martial arts school to some new leaders. What they get to start with is tens of thousands of dollars of equipment, some of which will go with them, some of which won't. Enough money in the bank account so that all of their bills are 100% covered for the first month. And you know what dollar investment they have to put in? Nothing. But when I started, I had to pay for all of these things. I had a negative income for years. And then for years and years and years, I pulled $300 a month, working full time. $300 a month. I think we figured out with two of us working that we were making something like 75 cents an hour. And we did it. And at one point in time, eventually we got things successful enough that we were actually making some money. And we could go do some things and start to travel and start to vacation. And we could go have some fun. And eventually have the option of, do we want to spend $200 on a thing or do we want to spend $200 on an experience? But a lot of times people don't realize what does it take to really build a business. To really build a business that can be successful. To have a fair trade of value. Because you can't strong-arm your customers. You have to provide a value that they want. And so there's a whole thing there. Some people have a belief, well, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And if you believe you're on the poorer side of the richer and poorer, well, then you're just going to get poorer. So people think like, well, the top 1% are the rich and everyone else is the poorer. Or they think, well, I'm middle class and I'm not rich, and so the poor just get poorer. And that they don't realize that beliefs like this is autopilot. And when you autopilot a belief like that, you impoverish yourself. Some people will say things like, well, you have to lie, cheat, and steal to get rich. Well, then you're not going to want to get rich. You're going to ascribe virtue to poverty because being dirt poor shows that you didn't lie, cheat, or steal. Some people won't pursue wealth because they say, well, I'm not that greedy. And so they won't pursue even the median levels of income because they feel to pursue that is being greedy. Some people will say things like, well, I don't need much. That they have enough to kind of make ends meet, and that's plenty for them. And by the way, that is 100% okay. I do like people who are content. But sometimes people will use the, well, I don't need much, to be complacent. We're going to touch on that as we go too. But one of the most spiritual beliefs that is sadly mistaken, and I still see it all the time, is, well, God says money is the root of all evil. The Bible does not say that money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that gold is the root of all evil. It doesn't say anything of the sort. That's not what the Bible says. Now, where this comes from is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, where the actual verse reads, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The love of money. So there's this phrase. Now, the love of money is not the money itself. Now, there's a couple of kinds of love that sometimes we think about, agape and phileo. Agape love is unconditional love. That's character-based. Phileo love is conditional love, brotherly love. That's relationship-based. And so many feel that love of money is kind of the agape of money. It's being unconditionally committed to earning money. Or to phileo money. Many feel that phileo money, it's just, I just like money a lot. Still, missing the point so badly to think that money is the root of all evil is a problem. It's the love of money. Whether you're thinking agape of money or phileo of money, it's the love of money. Now the phrase love of money, which is the way it's worded in almost every Bible translation that I've looked at, love of money is actually one Greek word. The one Greek word, philargria. Now, I don't speak Greek, so I may be mispronouncing all of my Greek words. That's okay with me. But most literally, this word means avarice. avarice. One challenge is that this exact word, though, is found nowhere else in the Bible, so we don't have a biblical context for this particular word. So, philargorrhea is found nowhere else in the Bible. Because of that, we can't look at like multiple places where it appears to see how the word's used. Now, we do come close with a related word, philargouria. That's in Luke 16:14 and in 2 Timothy 3:2. And that's translated as covetous or lovers of money when it's talking about people. And thus we can consider avarice and covetous pretty much as synonyms. So let's look at these words. So avarice is the insatiable greed for riches. That means no matter what you've got, it's never enough. Now, it's not just that no matter what you've got, you keep pursuing more. It's that no matter what you've got, you can't be satisfied. That there's a difference between a very wealthy person who continues to invest and reinvest the money to keep playing the game of money to get more, and someone who has an insatiable greed for riches, who always feels like, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough. And they're chasing more and more and more and more and more. Avarice is an inordinate, miserly desire to gain and hoard wealth. That's Random House Dictionary. Covetous, our synonymous word, is inordinately or wrongly desirous of wealth or possessions. Greedy, also Random House. So the real principle here is avarice is the root of all evil. An insatiable greed for riches, an inordinate miserly desire to gain and hoard riches, an inordinately or wrong desire for wealth or possessions is the root of all evil. Now that makes a lot more sense. Now, the root of all evil, all here doesn't mean every single evil there is. All means many kinds or the majority of kinds, or it can mean all kinds. So when someone says like, oh, that's all kinds of stuff, they don't mean literally that there isn't an exception. What they mean is there's such an enormous variety of the kinds of evil that avarice inspires that you can't really nail it down. Well, avarice only inspires this one, that one, and this other one. No, it's all kinds of evil that avarice inspires. And evil can mean evil or evil things. It also means things of a bad nature. Things that are not as they ought to be. Things that are injurious, things that are destructive. So avarice, the insatiable greed for riches, is the root of many kinds, even the majority kinds, of evil, bad things that are not as they're supposed to be, that do damage and are destructive. And so when we take some of that, we go back into 1 Timothy 6:10, for avarice is at the root of all sorts of evil, dangerous, destructive, injurious things that are not as they ought to be, which while some have coveted after, pursued inordinately, wrongfully, greedily for wealth or possessions, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Now we're just in one verse here. We're going to expand the context shortly. But the issues are not the money. The issue is not fair trade of value. The issue is not pursuing the promotion. The issue is not doing business. The issue is when someone in pursuit of money does so with avarice so that they err from the faith. And they pierce themselves through with many sorrows. The pursuit of money in and of itself is often lauded in the Bible. You go to the parable of the talents, that you've got the servant who was given 5 talents and he doubled the money. You have the servant who was given 2 talents and he doubled the money. And you have the servant who is given the 1 talent, and he buries it. Turns it over, not even so much as having gained interest. And the one who didn't double the money, he got in trouble, while the money doublers were praised as the good and faithful servants. So clearly, making money is not the Bible problem. Avarice is, particularly the kind of avarice that causes someone to err from the faith. The kind of avarice that leads people to be pierced through with many sorrows. So a friend of mine who I do business with will sometimes say things like, all money is not good money. And what he means by that is there are some ways you can make money that's not a good way to make money. And he's not willing to go there. And he will frequently say that the 2 things that will kill deals, greed and emotions. If you get greedy, if you get emotional, you can kill deals. And we've been watching people do that. In fact, one person we were going to do business with got greedy and tried to structure the deal to start cutting other people out of the deal. That's avarice. That he wants more, he wants more, he wants more. Not satisfied that he would make a lot of money doing the deal straightforward according to the opening negotiations. That no, what he wants to do is cut other people out. Cut other people down. People that might make a lot of money in the deal, he wants to trim them back to half, a quarter, a tenth. Because he wants a bigger share. And ultimately, he got to the place where he even said twice, look, I'm just in it for myself. You got to look out for number 1. I'm just making sure I make all the money I can. Well, here's one of the problems. If you're dealing with someone who is willing to cut other people out, he's willing to shortchange other people who are contributing value to the deal, we believe he's going to do that to us too. And we don't want to do business with someone like that. So what happened? This person erred from doing the right thing. He erred from treating people like people. The business may be business, but business people are still people. And what ended up happening is he got himself pierced through with many sorrows because he completely lost the deal. And he's not getting any more business. He could have been one of the top 3 go-to vendors. He could have done a lot of business. He could have made more money than he was trying to extract from this deal, but he walked into the deal with too much greed. He wanted more, he wanted more, he wanted more, and he ends up with nothing. So the issue isn't the pursuit of the wealth. The issue is when you err from the faith, when you err from doing the loving thing, when you err from doing the fair thing, when you err from doing the right thing, when you err from righteousness, you err from godliness, you err from faith, you err from love, you err from patience, you err from meekness, and you let things get out of control, you get pierced through with many sorrows. Now we put it in context. We'll back up to verse 5, because we've been talking 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. We back up a few verses. We go 1 Timothy 6:5. 1 Timothy 6:5 reads, perverse disputing of men of corrupt minds, then destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness, from such withdraw yourself. Now in particular, I want to zero in on the gain is godliness. From such people, withdraw. Sometimes you will hear people talk about blessings. And what they mean when they use the word blessings is money. That I'm so blessed in their world means I got money. I got stuff. That's the blessing. The blessing isn't the love. The blessing isn't the joy. The blessing isn't the peace. To them, the blessing is the stuff. 1 Timothy 6:5 is reminding you that if they equate gain and godliness, if they assume that just because someone's rich means that they're godly, just because someone has money means they're blessed, and if they don't have money, it means that they're not blessed, from such withdraw yourself. Don't get too close to those kind of people. You don't want to pick up that kind of thinking. Now what's curious is Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich. When he talks about riches, and most of the book is about money because money can be mathematically measured, so it's very clean, it's very objective. Napoleon Hill, talking about Think and Grow Rich, the #1 financial book in the world for the last century, he cites financial riches as the last of 12. He talks about your positive mental attitude as the first of the riches. He talks about your relationships as key riches, harmony between people as key riches. And it's almost as an afterthought, he says, oh, yeah, and money too. And so even the top business book in the Western world of the last century says, look, money, it is a big deal. It's not the biggest deal. It's only one facet of this whole thing that is the true riches of life. But there are some people, they get so fixated on the dollars and cents, so fixated on the stuff, that's all they see. And if you have it, you're blessed. If you don't have it, you're not blessed. If you have it, you must be a godly person because look how God's blessing you. If you don't have it, oh, you must be out of the will of the Lord because if you were within the will of the Lord, He'd be giving you stuff. And that's not the deal at all. So much so that in 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy 6:5, we are told, withdraw from people like that. Continuing from verse 5 to verse 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, it is certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and raiment, let us therewith be content. So godliness is holiness, piety toward God, reverence, respect. Content is being happy where you are right now, even as you move forward. But not moving forward means someone is complacent. And a lot of times people juxtapose the two. They think they're the same thing. Contentment and complacency are two very different things. Contentment says, I can stay right here. I don't need to do anything else. Complacency says staying where you are now is okay. I don't have to move. Complacent, someone might whine, someone might complain, someone might gripe about stuff, but they don't actually do anything about it. You do the quote of, doesn't hurt enough to move, it hurts enough to whine. And that quote comes out of an old story about an out-of-towner who was wandering by some farms and walks up to this porch where there's old guys in a walking chair, and there's this hound dog on the porch whimpering and whining. And the guy is ready to talk to the gentleman in the rocking chair. He says, is your dog okay? It's like, no, the dog's hurting. It's like, oh, why's the dog hurting? It's laying down on a nail. Like, oh, well, why does he get up? It don't hurt enough to get up. Just hurts enough to whine. And we want to make sure we're not that hound dog. That kind of part of my perspective is, if it bothers you enough to complain about, do something about it. And so you can be content and not be complacent. Now, I like to use a grade school analogy with this. So if you have a first grader who's in first grade, should they be content being in first grade? Or should they be whining, griping, and complaining that they're not in second, third, or fifth grade? They should be happy being in first grade. But if they're complacent, that means that they're happy in first grade, and they'll just stay here. I don't need to move on to second grade. I don't need to move on to third grade. I'll just stay right here. First grade is just fine by me. And that would be complacency. You want your first grader to be content being a first grader. In my martial arts, I want a white belt content being a white belt, but I don't want him staying a white belt for 2 years. I want him moving on to advanced white and yellow and advanced yellow and orange. I don't want someone content to be an orange belt for 5 years. 5 years after orange belt, I kind of expect them to be hitting black belt. Even going for second or possibly third degree black belt, depending upon where in orange belt we're talking. Complacency says, I'm fine. Ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe I'll complain that, well, why are all these other people getting their black belts and all this? Because you're not learning your stuff and you're not taking your tests. Yeah, well, I started before then. You remember when I used to outrank you? And that's complacency. Continuing from where we were, so picking it from verse 5 was, perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness, from such withdraw yourself. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, it's certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and raiment, let us be content. Continuing to verse 9, but they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. We don't use perdition a lot these days, but I'm sure in 1611 they go, not perdition. And then the verse that we kicked off with, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So they that will be rich, so they who have this covetous desire, they who have this avarice, and they're willing to go chasing it no matter the cost, that these people fall into temptation. Temptation is when your emotions want to do what your will knows is wrong. And a very simple test is, if you're violating the golden rule, if you think if someone did this to you, that would be patently unfair. Why are you doing it to them? If you think it's cheating, why are you doing it? That's temptation. And a snare is a trap. That they're falling into a trap. That they're letting money dictate their morality. They're not walking in with their values intact. They're not walking in with their faith intact. They're not walking in with their godliness intact. They're letting the money dictate right and wrong to them, which then leads them into many foolish and hurtful lusts. Foolish is lacking wisdom, that they're not thinking it through. They're not thinking big picture. They're not thinking long term. They're not thinking both sides. And when you stop thinking both sides, it's easy to be selfish. When you start to look at, I am the center of my universe, I look out for me, it's everyone else's job to look out for themselves, it's like you're getting a little narcissistic. If you don't automatically also think of other people, you're getting a bit self-centered. And you're likely to walk into the world very selfish. And that's foolish, because you're not thinking it through. You're not thinking it through on the size, you're not thinking it through on the scope, so you're not thinking it through as far as the people, you're not thinking it through as far as the longevity of time. You're caught in the selfish self-interest of the now. That's foolish. And hurtful lust. Hurtful is causing damage. Lust is, I would if I could. So this is a particular kind of lust here. It's not just, I want stuff. It's the wanting of stuff that is harmful. And there's a few ways this could happen. Either the things that I want are bad for me. The things that I want and what I'm willing to do to get them are going to do hurt to other people. Or what it is I want is going to do hurt to other people. So all kinds of different ways hurtful lust shows up, where it's non-benign, that it's going to do damage. And yet, if you're foolish and you haven't thought it through, if you're not careful about how you go about something, it's easy to get caught up in foolish, hurtful lusts. Because you get tunnel vision. You get too single-minded and you're not thinking, is this good long-term? And we see that in physical skills a lot, where people aren't thinking in terms of, well, in my case, I'm in my mid-50s now. As a man in my mid-50s, who I am right here, right now as a martial artist could defeat the me half of my life ago. But a lot of that is because when I was training in my 20s, I was training with an eye to being in my 50s and my 60s. So I didn't do the things that damaged my body. I haven't needed knee surgeries like a lot of my friends have needed knee surgeries. I haven't needed neck surgery like one of my friends needed neck surgery. I haven't done the damage to my body that the pushing the edge of the bounds of high performance in my teens and 20s often does to some of us who are pursuing super high level competitive work. But I train, and I kind of like to keep my original parts, and I kind of like everything to keep on working when I'm on the top half of 50. I kind of like to be able to keep on doing this stuff when I'm in my 60s and my 70s and even my 80s. And so I have trained accordingly because I think it through. And I kind of use the Chinese model on that because I was inspired by a lot of the Chinese masters that I worked with that were doing stuff in the elder years, the 70-something-year-old masters that could easily defeat the younger martial artists in the quote-unquote prime, in the physical prime, in the 20s and 30s. And that's who I decided I wanted to be, and that meant that I had to think through the big picture. You think through your relationships, you think through your connections, you think through your long-term goals, you think through also the life you want to be able to look back on. So foolish and hurtful lusts, not even just lusts, hurtful lusts, where you want something, and that when you can get it, you're going to go take it, not thinking about how much damage it does. Much more directly, we have some people with the kind of hurtful lusts that are self-destructively hurtful, where they use their money to do things that is damaging to their bodies, specifically things that they can OD on, that could literally kill them, and will do damage to them along the way. And then 1 Timothy 6:11. But you, man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. So we are told to flee these hurtful lusts. Now it's okay to want stuff. Got to think it through. Think big picture. Think of the other stakeholders involved. Not to come in with avarice, not to be greedy, not to have this willingness to do wrong things to get the money, to get your way. Instead, pursue righteousness. Righteousness is being just, doing right. In contrast with sin, sin is missing the bullseye. So by contrast, righteousness is hitting the bullseye. That's part of assertiveness, moving forward on purpose. What is your forward? Now, your forward may look different than my forward. That's okay. But what's your forward that you have chosen for yourself? What is your bullseye? Aim on purpose at that bullseye. Have a purpose for what that fulfills. Going for that bullseye, and do it with respect for others so that you don't do damage on your way to aiming for your bullseye. Godliness, which we already discussed. Faith is the logical extension of what we do know to what we do not know for sure. It's taking the spiritual truths that we know are true, and we're trusting in the spiritual truths that are a logical inference from that which we know. Pursue love. Agape love here. Unconditional love. Character-driven. That's love is patient. Love is kind. Is not jealous. Is not arrogant. Does not boast. There's this wholeness of what love is, and this wholeness of what love isn't. Flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, and patience. Patience is the willingness to wait for the fullness of time with a good attitude. Now, patience may not include waiting for more than the fullness of time with a good attitude. So if my kid's in first grade, if you're in first grade, you should be patient spending a year in first grade. But if you're spending 3 years in first grade, that's kind of getting to be a problem now. And so you need not be patient beyond the fullness of time. Give everyone a reasonable amount of time. Give everything a reasonable amount of time. And probably some more. So the fullness of time, an ample amount of time for everything to have gotten completed. Be steadfast, be enduring, even long-suffering. But also remember that at some point there's this cutoff where you go, okay, it's not happening. And if it's not happening, something needs to change. But as you practice patience, here's an axiom. Infinite patience produces immediate results. Infinite patience produces immediate results. And what that means is, like, if I know what the fullness of time is, and I know how long I'm going to wait, I can let it go. And right now, I can be at peace. I don't have to walk into school in September, and I just can't wait for the year to be over. I know how long the year is going to last, and I can be patient. And if I'm infinitely patient, which means that I predetermine I will have a great attitude as time passes, because I know it's going to take this amount of time. And I'm going to be good with that, because I already know that that's the deal going in. And some things aren't so clean as a calendar. And in some of those things, I have to practice infinite patience in the sense of, like, well, I'm just going to wait and I'm going to see how it unfolds. And I'm going to have a good attitude about it. And at some point, I will decide if it's healthy to continue to wait. At some point, I will decide if I need to make some changes. But I'm not going to do it because I'm getting impatient. I'm going to do it because something here needs some change. And those are two very different things. And then meekness. So 1 Timothy 6:11, but you, man of God, woman of God, flee these things, all that avarice, all that covetousness, all the erring from the faith, all the piercing through of many sorrows, all the snares, and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and, then we have this last word, meekness. Meekness is great power. Under great control. Now, without great power, meek and weak appear to be the same. Meekness requires power. So there's a difference between a safe man and a harmless man. If there's nothing I could do, and the only reason you're safe is I'm powerless, I could cut loose on you in all my fury, and nothing bad's going to happen to you anyway. You know, kind of like when a 2 to 4-year-old loses their temper and they come to hit you. It's annoying, but it's not terribly likely when they smack you that they're going to be shattering bone. Meekness, though, is when there's power. Meekness is when if someone does something to you, they could really do damage. But they don't. They have that power under control. If I walk in the room as a martial arts grandmaster, my presence should make everyone in that room safer. Even if I get angry, everyone in that room should be safe, because my level of self-control is so strong, capstone of the fruit of the Spirit. My self-control is so strong that you know I will not abuse that power to hurt you. You know where I really stand with you even when I get angry at you and you look at my words. And in fact, even just recently I had an episode where I was furious. But all my communication wasn't ready. And so it was kind of interesting when I came down off of my anger to go back and actually read what I wrote. And to see how much of what I wrote was behavior, unacceptable behavior, here's the facts, the behavior, unacceptable. And how much in the middle of my rage, I was still being factual. In the middle of my fury, I wanted the behavior fixed. I didn't attack the person. I didn't attack their character. I didn't attack their value. I didn't attack the relationship. If someone looked at all of that, now they may infer character from the behavior, but there were no accusations from me. And so the next day, the next week, I can go back to that transcript and I can stand by everything I said in the middle of my rage, because everything I said is still true. So if you know in the middle of my highest level of fury that I've known in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I stick to the facts and I stick to fixable behavior. How safe are you with me? That's meekness, the great control. That you know your heart is safe because I'm not going for your heart. I'm going after your choices. And I'm asking for different choices. Now here's an interesting thing. I'm not being controlling in the sense that I'm demanding you have to choose differently. But I am laying down a boundary. That these behaviors are unacceptable to me. Now you have the right to choose those behaviors. And I have a right to not have those choices in my life. So that's a boundary as opposed to being controlling. Controlling is when I tell you how you have to be. That's being controlling. A boundary is when I tell you if you're going to be that, I will not be available to have that in my life. So you can choose that, and then I'm going to choose to not have that in my life. So that's a boundary. There's an if-then boundary. But you still have the right to do it because you're a free will being. But meekness has to do with the control of that power. In fact, when we're told to turn the other cheek, if there's nothing you could do about it anyway, you're not turning the other cheek. You don't have a choice. You can't decide to turn the other cheek or not because the or not's not an option for you. But if someone strikes me on the cheek and I turn the other cheek, I'm willing to give them another chance. I'm willing to give them a shot. It's because I have the strength to do something about that. And so I can be a man of peace because I'm a man of power, rather than being a man of peace because I'm helpless. And I have no option but to really kind of hope the bad guys leave me alone and will just stop. So meekness, great power under great control. So all of this avarice stuff that my business friends and I can tell you, we see a lot. One of my colleagues in the personal development field, one of the things we've noticed is a negative transformation in the coaching industry, in the entire industry, is how many people do big promises but poor delivery. Yeah, and the quote that I kind of tossed into the ring that they called a mic drop, which, I mean, to me it just seems like it's a self-evident thing, is this statement. If your prospects knew how you really treat your clients, would your prospects become your clients? And if you are motivated by avarice, if you're motivated by gimme, 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 get, without thought to, well, what's the fair value? and to make sure that your marketing markets the value you actually deliver. And that when you're doing your selling, what you're selling is the value they will actually get. Then you deserve your money. You've earned it. But if what you're marketing is all these semi-empty, hypothetically possible promises, and what you're selling is, close the deal, always be closing, but there's no delivery. That the delivery is less than what you're selling. Okay, now that's greed. Because you're going, well, what do I need to say? What do I need to tell them to get them to give me the money? Without thinking, well, what do I actually deliver? Because if you don't deliver what you say, you're lying to get the money, and that is a hurtful lust. That's a snare. That's erring from the faith. You got to deliver what you say you deliver. It's the same thing relationally. If I decide at some point I'm going to ask a lady to marry me, if she knows how I'm really going to treat her as my wife, would she say yes? Same thing the other way around, assuming that many of our ladies today still prefer to be asked, would he ask if he knew how he was going to be treated as a husband? If he knew how you would really show up as a wife? And if you begin to understand, well, what is the experience that you're selling? What problem are you solving? What value are you offering? And if they really knew what it was really going to be, what the future experience would be, would they buy? So that's a business question. If your prospects knew what their experience would be as a customer, what their experience would be as a client, what their experience would be as a student, would they buy? So when we do business, when we pursue our careers, when we pursue our wealth, when we ask people to contribute to our ministry, when we ask people to contribute to our not-for-profit, when we go seeking employment, when we seek to fulfill a contract, when we're doing anything where there's an exchange of value, that we do so righteously, in a godly way, in faith and love, with patience, with meekness, so that we can earn the value that we ask. So I'm going to close with this idea. Money monsters make misery. Money monsters come in many forms. One money monster is equating blessings with money. A money monster can be born out of a lack of contentment. That you're always miserable because you need more. But then when you get more, you're still miserable because you need more than the more. A terrible money monster is becoming a human having, where you equate your net worth with your self-worth. And I've talked to and heard from many people who have admitted they've been guilty of that. A terrible money monster is buying your way into trouble. For instance, if someone is a drug addict and the only thing that has saved them from overdose is the fact that they just cannot afford enough drugs to overdose on, that they could buy themselves in a heap of trouble if they got themselves a lot of money. And there's other versions of that too, where if what you would legit do with your money is going to create trouble, that's a money monster. Avarice is a money monster. And any of many negative beliefs are money monsters. All the negative beliefs we started with are money monsters. And sometimes if you close your eyes and you think about money, think about income, think about wealth, and think about all the things that come with it. Some people find money monsters. That they think about wealth, and what they find when they think about wealth is, well, in order to get money, I have to give up all of my dreams. Or if I have to go get money, I have to give up my family. Now, sometimes it can be the opposite, where the money monster is that when you think about the money, you think about what you can have, but not about what it costs. I was talking to a woman one time where she had this dream of owning this nice house. And so I asked her to talk about, like, well, what would your experience be as a homeowner? Oh, well, you know, I could wake up in my own home and have all my own stuff, but some little things that she had never thought about. Like, how's your house stay clean? And go, what? How's your house stay clean? I guess I have to clean it. How does this beautiful lawn that you envision and these beautiful gardens in your backyard kind of stay lush? And what she began to realize is that she had this vision of this feeling of the having, but not really thinking to the place where, well, this having comes with a responsibility. And are you prepared for the responsibilities? Well, that's also a money monster. Because the avarice part of that is what you're seeing is the what I want parts, but not what comes with what you want. Part of the problem that some of those businessmen on that mastermind had is they saw what the money they could get would get them as they pursued their business. They weren't thinking about what pursuit of their business was going to cost them. It didn't occur to them that if I had sat down with them for that whole 5 or 10 years that mastermind had been running and said, well, show me your calendar. Show me where your kids are in your calendar. I see a picture of them on your desk. I don't see them in your calendar. I see a picture of your wife. I don't see your wife in your calendar. I don't see a date with your wife in your calendar. Oh, no, right here. No, that's a business event you're taking your wife to. You show me in your calendar where this wife you say is so important to you that you're quote-unquote doing all of this for her. You show me in your calendar where she is important enough to be taken on a date. You show me in your calendar this son that you're apparently so proud of in his little league. You show me where his games are in your calendar. This daughter that's doing these great things at school and is part of this academic decathlon, you show me in your calendar where that is. And they wouldn't have been able to. And so what you're telling me then is you see yourself as a wallet. Your wife does not need to be married to you to have your wallet. She can be divorced receiving spousal support. Your kids do not need their mother married to you for you to be their wallet. You can be their wallet paying child support. But if they are in your calendar, your wife needs her husband if she's going on a date with her husband. She needs you for a date with you. She doesn't need you for a check. Make sure you live your life so you, the human being you, is the plus, not a minus, and definitely not absent. And if the human being you is the plus, then the money is a bonus. But if the money is the only plus, they don't need the person to have the money. you can just send them the money and they'll go find other people. You don't want them to need to do that. So we want to deal with our money monsters. We want to deal if we have a negative view of money, a negative view of pursuit of money, if we have a negative money concept, we need to deal with that. If we have a negative character approach, a monstrous way of the pursuit of that wealth, we need to deal with that. We need to make sure we are offering fair value for what it is we're asking. And we deal with our monsters, and then we earn the money. It's be worthy of what you want. And how often have you heard me talk about that in relationships too? Be worthy of what you want. Make sure the values that you're offering the person you're in relationship with is worth the value you want to receive from them in the relationship. Now, it's not enough to say what you do or don't do with other people. What do you do or don't do with the actual person? What do you do or don't do with the business that you work for, the clients that you work for? What values do you exchange in the deals that you put together, in the work that you do? So this whole idea of be worthy of what you want, it applies everywhere. So we've been talking about money, but in the tradition of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, to think about the other things that work on the same principles. The love of money, avarice, is the root of all sorts of evil. So is covetousness of just about everything else. When all your gaming is trying to figure out, how do I get what I want? And I don't care if I offer a genuine value back, I just need to convince them, whether it's true or not. I just need to manipulate or trick my way into just me getting what I want. Need to demand or corner or control, just as long as I get what I want. That's avarice, covetousness. It may not apply to money, it may apply to something else, but it's the same thing. And we learn, and we see how it works, and we look to our doublings, and we look to our value adds, and we look to doing business and trade and exchange and providing value so that we are worthy of the values for which we ask. And remember that, as my friend and I both agree often, greed kills deals. Greed kills businesses. Greed kills careers. If you forget your place, like if you forget that I'm an employee here, I'm not the boss, or if you forget that I have to offer fair value in order to keep my customers and all that stuff, you will lose. You may feel like you're winning in the short term, and you may feel very self-righteous in the process of losing. But you lose. Don't let your greed kill deals. Don't let your avarice, your covetousness kill relationships. And pursue, as we're told in Timothy, all these good things: righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. And in my opinion, love is right at the top of that list. And connect and know what your values are and pursue your highest values. And you may need to change your values, because there are some people whose money values is so high up on their list that they don't care who they hurt, climb on, or stomp on along the way. And we have been cutting a lot of those people loose in the business that we've been doing. And then, you can talk to us, and we will let you know that one of the most valuable commodities in business, and what we have been pursuing and what we believe we have found, is someone we can trust. Now, the person we can trust doesn't have the skill set. They don't know how to do the work we want done. If we want someone who already knew the work, we get someone who was already a paralegal, or someone who was already a lawyer, or someone who was already an accountant, someone who already knew these things. But what we don't need someone that knows how to do the work. We can teach the work. What we need is someone we can trust. Someone who thinks beyond herself. someone we can give single signature access to our money to, and know that our money is not going anywhere our money shouldn't go. And that is priceless. And then the skills we can teach. Because we found someone who doesn't live a life of avarice. Someone who really does want to give good value. Who really does want to connect. For whom the people is important. And the money is incidental. And I can't tell you how huge that is. That's what we call in business soft skills. Because it's not something, you can't just test that. You have to know that. That's a character thing. And then you can train the competence, because she's very smart. So we can train the competence. We can train the skill set. But we need the character. And that's what is being spoken of here in Timothy. Someone who doesn't fall into those kind of temptations, those kind of traps, those kind of foolish, hurtful lusts, but rather does pursue all these virtues, all these values, and will give good value for what it is she will be paid. And that's what I want for all of us.